The Podcast Super Friends. 5 podcast pros talking tech, promotion, marketing, ideas, and strategy.
I guess this is going to be the July edition of the Podcast Super Friends. We have a summer schedule set up for today and a summer crew. And today's summer crew is going to feature the 3 of us for now, a 4th one possibly joining later, and maybe even a 5th. I'm Matt Kundle from the Sound Off Media Company located in Canada. We're going to go around very quickly, introduce ourselves because it's been about a month and you might have forgotten who we are.
I'm Johnny Podcast with the 3rd most beautiful camera, second only to Matt, and then Jag coming from Fort Worth, Texas.
John Gay from Jag Podcast Productions, just outside Detroit in lovely Berkeley, Michigan.
Catherine O'Brien mentioned earlier that she had an event that she would be attending today. And Dave, life got in the way of Dave, and he may join us a little bit later, but his car is unexpectedly gone somewhere else.
Dave's not here, man.
Dave's not here, man. And by when I say it went somewhere else, it was not stolen. I would like to clarify that. Here we are sitting in the middle of summer. We get together a little bit beforehand to say, okay, well, what are we thinking about? What are we doing? And how's your summer been? So you can mention that as we go. But I think the first thing that we all mention when we talk about podcasting and what's happening today, and it's, started back in February, we heard about it. March, we had Justin Jackson from Transistor.fm come on the show because we were talking about Apple Video Podcasts and what it would mean. And he came on the show, and his Transistor wasn't even announced as being one of the players in this as of yet. But since then, a lot of podcast hosts have added Apple Video Podcasts. So as we go around, Apple's putting a little bit more emphasis into the video podcast, but for what you guys do and what you guys have seen, has this reached a point where it's meaningful yet? We'll start with Johnny.
I don't use Apple Podcasts as my podcast player. I use Spotify, so has not changed the difference for me. The video podcasts that I consume have been available for a long time. I'm just more looking at it for the people that I work with. I primarily host all the shows that I work with on Megaphone and a couple on Libsyn, and haven't really checked the Libsyn side of things. However, the ones that I work with on Libsyn, they're only concerned with audio only. They're not even interested in video. So there are still plenty of podcasters out there. I would say a large chunk that are they're not even in this video world. It's almost like AI, where they come out with the AI stats of like, here's the amount of people in the country. Here's the amount of people that even heard or even use AI. And it's just such this small figure. It's growing. But I think it's the same with the video podcasting side. So I know Megaphone is in line to get Apple Video Podcasts. It's more of just a waiting game. So the people that I am working with, I'm just starting to prepare them of like, hey, Apple is going to start releasing video. Now that is going to become a thing, I think that it's time to transition your show into video format. They're all on YouTube already, but now it's taking it and putting it on Megaphone and getting the video side spun up for them. So that's changing a few intros, making things a little more pretty on the video side. However, there are some people that just hear that and go, don't care.
Jag?
I am host primarily on Simplecast, and while they were announced as one of the original partners for Apple Video Podcasts, I have not seen anything from them that shows, and it may be available at this point, but I have not had a real thirst from my clients to do it. As of right now, it just seems easier to, if you're going to do video, fish where the fish are, go on YouTube. I also think that from the consumer side of things, that people are used to listening on Apple. And I think if they want to watch, they're trained to go to YouTube. If they want to listen, they stay on Apple. So I'm not saying never, but not at this point. It's not a factor for me.
It is a habit breaking thing, though, because Spotify didn't have the video podcast for a long time. And now that's a pretty common knowledge concept for them when people go to Spotify, is that, oh, well, they have video podcasts. So I think it's more of just time under, or like time in the market versus timing the market. So it's not that they're late to getting into the video. They are. I think once they've been in it for 6 months to a year, the people that are more prone to going to video will go, oh, it's actually easier for me to just consolidate everything into one. And that kind of this is a little bit of a sidetrack, but I don't know. Do you have YouTube Premium?
Yes.
No.
Yeah. Okay. So YouTube Premium, Matt, I think you would agree, is probably the best subscription for your money.
Yes.
in terms of how much you're consuming content. I use YouTube all the time, and not having to watch an ad in like 3 years on YouTube, you forget what it's like not having that. They just announced today that starting in the beginning of 27, if you have YouTube Premium, you will get Peacock for free. So I don't know that that's a direct competitor to Apple Video Podcast, but just hearing both of those things today, it just seems like that everyone's sort of getting their guns up and preparing.
Mm.
We need to really, who's going to capture everybody's attention? We want the all-in app, the app that you can do everything. And that even ties into what we'll talk about a little bit later with Riverside.
That is interesting, and it's kind of like who is going to align with who. I mean, I've thought about YouTube Premium, but maybe if it gets me an NFL playoff game, with Peacock, or I get to watch Ted being a Boston native, maybe it's something to think about.
You won't have to worry about that. The Patriots will not be making the playoffs this year. Now, as we move to other things,
A lot of nationally televised games, though, so I can watch them.
Jag, you do make podcasts that have videos, though, right?
Yeah, in fact, I think it's about 40% of what I do is video as well as audio. 40% of the podcasts I make have a video, a full video, not just reels, and 60% are audio only.
Okay, so something to consider here, because as the banner is going to crawl across the screen here, where this show is available, we upload this to in Art19. We're on their beta program for video. It's Apple Podcasts that we're on, but we're also available on Amazon Music in the USA only, and also in the iHeart app. So
on video?
On video.
Okay, because of the Apple feed?
Well, it's not even an Apple feed. It's just a video feed that is inside, in your case, Simplecast, Johnny's case, it will be Megaphone when it happens. And in our case right now with this show, it's Art19. So, this is an HLS video distribution. So it's Apple, but there's also the iHeart app, which is now supporting video.
Did not know that.
Well, life comes at us fast now in podcasting, and it's true. I can barely keep up with the news to where this stuff goes.
Are they going to have the iHeart jocks promote that like they do the iHeart Radio Music Festival ad nauseum?
Well, funny enough, you mentioned that. I was listening to Shome FM in Montreal, which is owned by Bell, which has all the iHeart product and all the licensing for it. And there was an ad today for iHeart Video Podcasts. So
interesting.
And that is something I want to mention, because Apple has not, they don't do public
marketing.
Yeah, they don't do that sort of big splash kind of thing.
I wish Catherine were here. She's our resident Apple hater. She'd have something to say.
Darn. Maybe what I'll do is we'll leave this part blank on the audio thing, and we'll let her insert her.
Yeah. Fix it in post.
Yeah. But this is what the HLS video is rather easy too. So we're seeing a few of the apps now jump on board.
And so now with video, this is something that we lightly push our viewers and listeners who have podcasts to do. It's like, okay, if you haven't jumped into video yet, like now's the time to start considering it. But now I have a real life example that I want to bring up that came up to me an hour before this. So I was on YouTube, and I've mentioned this guy before. His name's David Senra. He hosts the Founders Podcast, which is a wildly, massively popular podcast that he bootstrapped from the ground up. Insanely successful guy. He spun that off into his own interview style podcast called the David Senra Podcast. Check out both of those. His Founders Podcast was it came into the video space very recently. It was just audio only, and what he would put on YouTube was literally a text crawl. So basically glorified subtitles of the episode. And people loved it. It was get massive views on YouTube, lots of subscribers, had a very real audience there. He recently, just in the last few episodes, has totally revamped it to a full-blown video podcast. It's got 3 4K cameras, constantly cutting. It's got beautiful graphics overlaid into it. It's a whole production now. And I was scrolling the comments, and would you believe it? A lot of people in the comments are saying, man, this video looks so beautiful. It's so great. And this is on YouTube. Man, this looks so beautiful. This is so great. Do you mind going back to just the text crawl? I actually preferred that. I saw at least 5 comments saying that some form of, this looks beautiful, really great job, glad you're so successful doing this. Go back to the text crawl. Could you do a split screen? It was actually easier for me to read it just doing the text. So I don't know. There's something there. So like, yes, consider doing the video, but there is a component of people in the audience that are like, I'm just an audio guy. I'm just an audio girl. I'd rather just read the text flowing along.
What's interesting, and I wish I could cite it, I wish I could remember where I saw this, but I read a really good piece recently about the podcast consumption experience being so vastly different between audio and video. that audio, it's background, it's while you're working, while you're driving, while you're walking the dog, and that if you're consuming video, and I don't mean YouTube as a tab in the background, I mean actually watching the video. If you're actually watching the video, you are paying rapt attention, or pretty mostly rapt attention to it. I think about the YouTubers that my wife and I watch at night way more than linear television at this point. If they've got good content, we're pulling it up on our living room TV. We're actively watching it, as opposed to podcasts that I listen to in the morning when I'm walking my dog. Two very different experiences. And as a podcaster, as you consider audio versus audio and video, you might want to think about where your audience either is or where your target audience is when you're making that decision.
Or even how much effort you're putting into the video. Like we've
Yeah.
talked about this all the time, is like you can dip your toe into the video and do what we do, which is just pure talking heads. There's not a lot of, there's a little bit of flash. We have the nice background. We've invested a little bit into our camera setups. We have the nameplates underneath. Beyond that, though, we're not talking about doing a whole Christopher Nolan production level video podcast.
We're not doing the Odyssey here.
Exactly. Like what Jag is saying, a lot of people are just throwing this on in the background because it fills that void of, I can't look at my phone right now. And it's really sad state of affairs when it's like a lot of your downtime is spent looking at your phone. I can't look at my phone right now, but I need to be consuming something. And that's where the audio podcast.
I need stimulation.
Yeah. It fills that void of sort of, what we would call mundane tasks that we have to get done. And you can't, do this while you're doing it.
Well, you could also be watching YouTube or just listening to YouTube and then messing around on your phone and being double screened in that sense.
Don't get me started on my wife when she's been on calls all day long and has no social battery left. And I'm like, hey, let's watch something. And I pull a video up on YouTube and I look across the couch and she's just scrolling.
She needs the decompression time.
But she does. And I don't hold it against her, but I give her a hard time a lot.
Yeah, well, she's me because that's me. I'm not interested in watching anything at night unless it's a sporting event.
Right.
Because I had a screen in front of me all day in some capacity. So that's where I get to be. That's where I sort of say, that's enough of that. But this does also lead into something else here because we've talked about a number of things that, how do we measure that? Like, how do we measure the experience of being double screened, the video, the separate experience, the audio experience? And we've used downloads for a long time. There's a feeling in the industry right now that the downloads are not really a very good metric for determining the price of an ad. And I've even heard it was Dan Granger who was on the Pod News Weekly Review with James Cridland and Sam Sethi, saying that there's $2 billion of money just sitting on the table, just not really being used because of the lack of confidence in the download. A show gets downloaded, but really what's it listened to? And I've even heard, and this one I heard on the New Media Show with Rob Greenlee, and it was Leo Laporte who was saying, well, if I download it from cell phone tower, is that going to count as a download, and how many downloads is that with the IP address there? And what happens if I download it? I didn't know this one, by the way. If I do it on the Microsoft campus where they have one IP address and everybody on the campus downloads this particular tech show, that's one download based on the IP address. And I was like, holy crap, I didn't know all that stuff. I thought I knew everything when it came to downloads. But here we are. We've gone looking for a new measurement. And this story, Jag just pointed this out about just before we went to air here. And that's that the Alliance for Measurement in Podcasting formally released its Accords last week. And coverage has been rolling out across the industry ever since. The framework answers three foundational questions: what a podcast is, on-demand spoken word content available via RSS; what a play is, 30 or more consecutive seconds of consumption; and what an ad impression is, any portion of an ad served to a user. It also recommends randomized holdout groups, a 5 to 10% ad-free control as a gold standard way to prove incremental lift to advertisers. There's an article, by the way, right now by Ashley Carmen at Bloomberg. I'll assume that is paywalled. And I just mentioned Dan Granger on the Pod News Weekly Review. I'm going to put links to all of this in the show notes for those who want to go find it. And finally, there was an opinion piece by James Cridland in Pod News, and he contends that podcast apps asked to share exposure data every 30 seconds, including hashed emails and mobile ad IDs from consenting users. Those people should receive a cut in the revenue. So, if you're a podcast app and, there's ads playing it, those apps should get, part of the revenue. What I read from, by the way, is from the download, Sounds Profitable, written by Gavin Gaddis, just arrived an hour ago. The Sound Off Media Company is a member of Sounds Profitable. Wanted to put all that out there. Okay, that was a lot. Who wants to start?
Does this mean that we now have to put our ads for our clients in the first 30 seconds for them to even be valuable? Because if you're the advertiser selling it, there's all these different camps at play. There's the host, there's the advertiser that's paying the money, and then there's the listener. The advertiser paying the money wants the listener to hear the ad. The host wants to have the ad and get paid, but they don't want it to be in the first 25 seconds because they know people are just going to skip right through it, and it's going to, pee off the listeners because the first thing they're hearing is an ad. The listeners, they don't ever want to hear an ad, but they want to continue to consume the content for free. So where is the balance in all three of them?
I don't think it needs to be in that first 30 seconds. I mean, if you're listening to 30 seconds of the podcast, it's going to count as a download or whatever it's going to be called. But I think, but I don't think I think you're conflating those two things, Johnny. I don't think it needs to be in the beginning of the podcast. I just think that
if we're counting a download though, because the advertiser wants to know if their ad was consumed.
Oh, I follow you now. My apologies. Okay,
Yeah,
I got you. Okay.
They want to know if their ad was heard. And so I think the workaround for this, and happy to hear any other ideas on this too, is ties us back to we should be on video. Because what I'm seeing a lot more and more podcasters do, and I'm doing this with my clients as well, is instead of having the podcast and then the 30 or the minute long ad happens 10 or 15 minutes into the episode, that sponsor is on the screen for the entirety of the episode. Their logo is visible the entire time. Or for the audio only consumers, it's a really quick blurb of this episode is brought to you by the podcast Super Friends. Boom, we're starting. Something along those lines where we're finding a happy medium, because if advertisers aren't confident that any listeners are able to even consume their ads, they have no idea that the show is sponsored. Why am I spending money?
So not sure where I land on all this yet, other than they're thinking about this really hard. And as well, I think there's also, attempts here to get, video counted as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
and that's a whole different thing, right? Because it's not tied into the RSS feed. That's more your world.
Yeah, but at the same time, it is in the RSS feed if it was on Apple, iHeart, and Amazon Music.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that's why there's a little bit of, there's sort of a race here to find out, or at least to land on something that is going to be able to amalgamate, the video as well.
As your $3 word. I think if we zoom out for a second, what's great about this is that the podcast industry has grown. That for years, we can just count a download as, all the stuff Matt talked about earlier. But now this industry is big enough, like to your point about $2 billion being ready to be spent. People are buying and investing in podcasting. A podcaster, like a host-read ad, is one of the most trusted sources of advertising there is. So the fact that we're having this conversation is indicative of the fact that the big boys, so to speak, are really involved in wanting to spend money in podcast advertising. Case in point, Podcast Movement being moved to New York around Ad Week in September. So it shows as an industry how much we're growing, and that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, this also goes into, what is a podcast now, because it feels like a very archaic term all of a sudden. And I think what's sort of being bandied around is, I'd like to have this, new media thing that you're doing, with video. I want it to run on my YouTube page, but I also want it on my website and where it appears. And now there's all sorts of different places that this stuff can appear. And when you say podcast, it feels old all of a sudden. And to the point where, I think the suggestion at one point by, Leo Laporte was a netcast, because it's going to wind up everywhere. Now, like, it's a podcast and the iPod doesn't exist anymore. Right. So
that Sandra Bullock movie, The Net, back in the 90s?
That's right. That's
when you say net, that's what I think of.
Yeah.
We'll fill you in later, Johnny.
Yeah. I mean, who gets to make, who gets to really do the definition of all this stuff? We've done it. I mean, it started with the Interactive Advertising Bureau, the IAB, who came up with the original definition of this as a download. And now we've got, somebody new here sort of, making these proposals. But who in the end gets to make the call? Is it Apple and Spotify because they've got definitions for what a play is? Is it the advertisers? And if it's the advertisers who do it, I think that might be a little bit worrisome because the advertisers are always going to gain that towards them and not necessarily the creator.
And I wonder how, this really applies to the shows that are pursuing the traditional CPM ad-based model. The direction that I always steer people is just private ad sales. Like work it out yourself directly with the advertiser. There's just two sides of what a podcaster is. There's the people that are the really big ones that are getting the Honda, they're getting the Dollar Shave Club, if they're even a company anymore. And then there's the people that are much smaller, more niche audiences that they can afford to charge private ad sales and make a lot more money because the advertiser really wants access to that specific niche audience. And $15 CPM is just, I'm getting 3,000 downloads an episode. I don't want $45. I want $4,500 because all 3,000 of those people are your exact target market.
What would an advertiser pay to be in front of a group of 300 people you were talking to in a conference room, or a conference hall, if you were getting 300 downloads an episode?
Yeah,
that's the way to think about it.
Yeah, if those 300 people are like the decision makers in the exact, like that need your software service or whatever it is that you're selling, you're going to pay top dollar for that. So I wonder if it's a conversation that's even people are even going to think about. It's probably not something that I'm even going to spend very much mental energy on. Is like, what is the definition of a podcast? It's what I consider a podcast. It's stuff that I work on. That's a podcast.
Jag, have you had a chance yet to play with Riverside's AI producer?
What they're branding as co-creator, you mean, Matt? Or
yeah, they ship something.
It's like the AI producer. It's just like I think it's just like a revamped version.
Editor 2.0.
Editor 2.0.
I watched their webinar at noon Eastern today on their new editor. The most of what they focused on in that hour with our friend Kendall Brightman is friend of the show is the timeline and making it much easier and more intuitive to edit. So I think if you are a DIY podcast editor, I think you're really going to enjoy the Riverside editor. There's the ability to generate new things. What I have done a couple times with my own Jag Show podcast is I have recorded the podcast, and then I have had its AI co-creator, whatever you want to call it, generate a blog post for my website about the podcast, which has actually done pretty well in terms of clicks. With a few minor tweaks when they send me. I've had it design a thumbnail for me. It's pretty formulaic, but it works for my purposes. So I really think Riverside, I mean, everybody's trying to be the end-all, be-all, all-in-one platform, but I think right now Riverside is as close as we have to a one-stop shop for everything.
I agree. And it makes me even wonder with how much they're releasing, if everybody else is trying to even be the one-stop shop, just based on the amount of stuff that Riverside allows you to do now. I mean, recording, hosting, post-production, marketing assets. It's kind of overwhelming how much stuff they have in there.
Are they the best at everything? Probably not. No. But if you are a, solopreneur podcaster and you don't want to pay 8 subscription fees for a host and for a transcription service or for show notes or for an editor, I hate to say, you might just buy Riverside and call it a day.
Okay, so I don't have Riverside and I'm that person. I just think I need every toy in the box, right?
It makes you wonder though, like when you look online and you go, that's an AI post. Is there, once this has enough time under its in its life cycle to where more people are using it, to where you can spot something and go, that's a Riverside podcast, or that's a one-stop shop podcast. Like there's not that sort of.
I think it goes back to my general feeling on AI, which is it's a starting point. You can have it do all the heavy lifting, and then you go through and make tweaks and make it your own.
Yeah, I think probably I didn't watch the webinar that you did, Jag, but the thing that I saw on social media about it today that I thought was probably one of the cooler things for the hobbyist was the lower thirds graphics that you can put in onto your video now of like, here's the YouTube subscribe button. I can't tell you, before I learned how to actually do that, I'd watch YouTube videos and go, how the hell do they get the thing to fly up on the screen and it says subscribe, and it has the mouse that moves over and clicks the subscribe button to encourage the viewer to subscribe on YouTube. Now it's just a simple drag and drop on there. And
But
I
those
think
aren't clickable from the video, are they?
no. It's the lower third graphic that the viewer sees.
Yeah, it just
as
reminds you to
as a
subscribe.
visual cue to subscribe. Yeah, but like
Got it.
even like that is one of those things. Just adding that on there that takes your video from like a B- to a B+
Mm.
or an A- in terms of like, oh, this this has some this just having something like that on there puts it in the higher ranks of like the better production podcast that I'm watching. It doesn't feel so hobbyist and down to earth.
Fair.
So when I see an AI written post, I get an icky feeling, and I run away. That's all. I just move on to the next thing, and that includes graphics too.
Yeah.
So interestingly, as a case study, so I did a podcast episode a couple weeks ago when we had that major heat wave all over most of North America, where I talked about how to record a podcast in extreme heat. It was 5 minutes. It's basically like, turn off your fan and your air conditioner, but don't die. That kind of stuff. And what ended up happening, what happened was it ended up ranking in search for people Googling what do I do about podcast equipment overheating. The point of my blog was not having the person overheat, but it ended up ranking for podcast equipment overheating, and I got a couple hundred clicks on the blog. So for me, my primary goal of my podcast is to get the video out there, get the content out there on social. But if and having the blog on my website, it's probably more to for Google results than it is for people to go and read it. So because the blog is not my top priority, I'm okay with Riverside editing it and me doing a little bit of light editing on it.
Yeah.
Now's a good time, by the way, to ask you about, doing a show by yourself. David wanted to talk about this today. Establishing yourself as an expert is important. And, doing a solo show is a great way to do it. So tell me, Jag, tell me a little bit about how you put these together. They're about 5 or 6 minutes long sometimes. Walk me through the process of how you do a solo podcast.
I'm always tweaking it, to be honest, Matt. And my most recent episode in the last week was 10 minutes, which was long for me. For me, it started off as I would script it because I can sound like I'm not reading a script. Problem is my eyes will betray me because, I'm looking at the screen here, but my camera's up here. And so a lot of times I got, hey, you need a prompter or something. It looks like even if you sound like you don't reading a script, you look like you're reading a script. So I went the bullet point route. And now I have a note with 5 or 6 bullet points of things I want to hit, and I kind of know where I want to go with it. And I just try to think about something that would be helpful to, podcasters, my clients, things like that. And I do use it as a branding tool to brand myself as the podcast guy in my social networks, so people continue to see my posts on LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram, TikTok, whatever. But it's a lot harder to do a solo podcast than it is with guests, because with the guest, you can bounce off them. You can listen to what they say. You can ask a follow-up question. With a host, it's just you. So I would say know what you're going to get across. It takes a lot more prep than an interview show. For an interview show, it can be a 5-minute, questionnaire and you're good to go. But for a solo podcaster, you've really got to know how you want to get from A to B and C to D and land the plane.
Okay, I know somebody who's just heard that is asking the question about the teleprompter, which I believe is built into Riverside, or do you use something else?
I haven't used I've used the Riverside teleprompter a little bit. I never really spent a lot of time with it. A lot of times I just had it in a Word doc in a different window. And I think that might have been partly my downfall. If I had a smaller one right up here, right under my camera, it might be better than me looking down at the screen like I'm looking at the two of you right now. So yeah, if you're not comfortable riffing off bullet points, then I'd say, yeah, script it, but use a tool to make it look like you're not reading the script on the screen in front of you.
Okay, listen, this is subtle, and I notice everything because I'm just trained to, but I notice that when you do it, I can see a slight movement in your eyes when you do it, but it's just reading from left. It's just you reading from left to right. It's not anything other than just you reading from left to right off the teleprompter.
Right, but I've had some people tell me that they're watching my eyes and see that my eyes are going, reading down the thing, as opposed to, okay, I want to, if I don't have the script, I'm actually making a point to look a few inches up and look into the camera. Hey, I was a radio guy, not a TV guy. Look into the camera as opposed to looking a few inches down at my screen and looking at the script.
And does it take you longer than when you do an interview podcast?
Oh, that's a great question. I think it's shorter only because I keep the length so much different. But it will take me, if I'm really going to do a pretty good job and work on the video and all that. I mean, it'll take me a couple hours to do a 5-10 minute podcast from start to finish, as opposed to a an interview where it's record it, edit it. I would say it probably takes me as long to do a 10-minute solo show as it does to take me to do a 35, 40-minute tandem show.
I love that you just said, because I feel better about myself. Because I'm like, oh, if I got to do a solo show this week, and I do one every quarter. I just wind up doing one where there's just no guest, and I just say I just spent 3 hours to record 12 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And I'm like, I guess. But I feel better about myself. Thank you.
I was actually on a call today with somebody who said that their solo episodes were getting much better downloads than their guest episodes. He's a business coach, and he was telling me how people were tuning in for his street cred basically and his knowledge of the field. So if you have a niche that you are really knowledgeable in, there's a lot of value in doing a solo podcast. Somebody might be more interested in you telling them how to grow your business than interviewing me about how I went from a radio guy to a podcast guy, for example.
I totally get that. I think people download a podcast for the host more than anything else.
Unless there's an absolute rock star guest, unless you've got Tom Brady or Josh Allen on your show, it's mostly for the host.
But most of the time I can go and get a Josh Allen interview anywhere.
Yeah.
Right.
You want it to be on someone that you're gonna enjoy.
Maybe I don't want to listen for 45 minutes. So maybe I just want the short on it, right? So something drilled down. It all comes down to time. But the host is the host. People know the host, and that's how they connect to the show. I mean, if you just had a great guest and the host didn't matter, only people would your audience would only show up for the great guests.
Okay, here's an example. As a Patriots fan, Bill Belichick finally started doing podcasts as a guest. So I watched him on, was it All the Smoke? What was the show that he was on?
Does his girlfriend allow him to do that now?
I don't know, but apparently because he's doing it.
Are they together anymore?
That's to be debated. I don't know. But he was on this one podcast that was, it was a sports related podcast. The name has escaped me, but
is it All the Smoke?
It might have been All the Smoke. I'm not sure, but he was on. It was a great interview. I saw he was also on Sean Hannity's podcast. I'm not a fan of Sean Hannity, so to Matt's point, I didn't watch or listen to that one, and I assume he probably regurgitated a lot of the same stories he told on that first podcast. So, yeah, unless it's a really exclusive get, I'm not going to check it out. I think the Kelsey brothers do a good job on their podcast, and they've had some good guests on there, so I'll listen to that one because I think they do a good job.
Well, and think about the time saved too. Like we just went through, yes, it takes a lot more energy and yes, time to do the solo show, but imagine how much more time you'd have when you're not thinking about, I need to find a guest. I need to do the pre-call with the guest. I need to do research on the guest. It's just on you to come up with new solo topics, and you record it whenever you want. You're not on anybody else's schedule but your own. I think there's a ton of value in people doing just a solo podcast. And Jag, you do this more frequently than I do, but I used to do solo podcast stuff and solo content. One of the biggest things that applies to everybody that's considering doing this is to make it easier on yourself, you have to just be yourself.
Yes.
It's so difficult to sit down and try and do a solo podcast and pull up this persona of like, I am now Johnny, the solo podcast host, who's this completely different person than I am in the rest of my life. If you're just yourself, that makes it so much easier. All you have to focus on is the content. You don't have to worry about putting on this persona or having this broadcaster voice like you're, calling games for Fox on the NFL or something like that. It's just you being you, dumping your knowledge out into the void. And that's the way I would think about it is I'm just saying this stuff out loud. I'm not necessarily picturing a person in front of me that's listening to this. I'm sort of just kind of inner monologuing out loud on something that I...
taking a huge dump of knowledge.
Yeah. And if you need to edit it down, great. But I'm just trying to get the information out there. And the majority of people that are doing this are people that you want to establish yourself as an expert in X field. So just vomit dump on people. And the other piece of advice that I would give is dumb everything down. Assume your listeners know absolutely nothing, because the stuff, and we've mentioned this a bunch of times before, the stuff that you assume everybody knows, they may have never heard of this concept before. So the kindergarten level stuff for them might be mind blowing to them, but to you, it feels like you shouldn't even need to address it. You should call
Or
that
depending
stuff
on
out.
what, depending on the topic, if you're getting into the real nitty gritty something, even if you take 10 seconds, say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I used that acronym. Here's what it means." If you're not familiar,
Absolutely.
Something else that just came to my mind. I did say that, oh, it's going to take 3 hours to do 12 minutes, but at the same time, you get a transcript of what you said. That's a newsletter.
Yep.
And you can repurpose that into a newsletter very, very easily.
and a blog post and all that. Yeah,
How much of that do you do, Jag?
I really should have a newsletter. I don't have one. I know
You don't have a newsletter.
No, but I know it's something. It's just one of those things that fell down the priority list. I should. I see the value, and I know you've both done it.
It's so hard though, because and I know exactly how you're feeling, Jack, because it's like, well, I wanted to do a podcast. I didn't sign up for a newsletter. I didn't want to start a newsletter. But now, because I need to reach as many people as possible, not only am I doing the podcast, I'm now a shorts reels creator. I'm a blog post writer. I'm a newsletter creator now. And you're like, this was supposed to be a 10-minute podcast. That's all it was supposed to be. And now it's ballooned in all these things. And there's a ton of value in doing those extra things, but that's where people get caught up.
Overwhelmed. Yeah. I see the value. I should, and I just have, it hasn't been at the top of my priority list, but I am trying to at least create a blog post for SEO reasons for my new website for each podcast episode.
And Johnny, you had a podcast and you stopped it at one point. And why was that?
It was just too much. It's the same thing as everybody else. Your podcast is sort of a side job, and you have your real job. And my side job as a solo podcast wasn't paying the bills. My real job as a podcast producer was paying the bills and is paying the bills. So yeah, it's just, I wasn't in love with it enough to do it all the time.
Mine went dark for like 6 months, and I'm trying to bring it back as a branding tool for myself.
Yeah. I love podcasting and what I do every single day. I didn't necessarily love being a solo podcast host.
Well, I'll have you know that I have a weekly newsletter that comes out monthly.
That I might be able to handle.
It's silly. I say, it's a weekly newsletter for sure. It's like every 2 weeks.
But here's the thing. I wonder about perception, because I see your newsletter pop into my mailbox, Matt, and I'm like, oh, it's Matt's weekly newsletter. I have no concept in my day of how long it's been since you did your last one. So it might not be the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, it's kind of nuts to them. A weekly newsletter that comes out monthly.
Well,
it might just be the bit.
It's just building the catalog too. I mean, it doesn't matter if your podcast went dark for 6 months, Jag. You have all of those episodes already. It doesn't matter if you do a newsletter once a month. After 12 months, you've done 12 newsletters that someone will find and hasn't read any of them, and what goes, wow, look at this wealth of knowledge and content and entertainment that I now have access to.
Yeah, I don't know about a wealth of knowledge, but I appreciate the kind words.
I was talking about Matt.
Oh yeah, fair. We can all agree on that.
I was going to go off about, summer and whether or not, work is up or down production wise. I spoke to, Johnny briefly before we went on, and he says that he's got a consistent flow of work as a podcast producer, and people are going, oh, I have a small slowdown as it is during the summer. But how are you doing, Jag?
I'm in your camp, Matt. I've had a slowdown. I've been fairly quiet since about Memorial Day, and especially since the 4th of July. I've got some stuff on the horizon for August that's picking back up, but I think June and July were definitely slower than the rest of the year. Not ground to a halt, but I definitely had time to do house projects and things like that. So.
And one of the things I was just going to mention, because it came up when you were talking about, taking time off, you took 6 months off doing your show, and that's, you can keep it alive. You can bring it back.
Yeah.
And you may not lose any downloads as it were. But if you do take the summer off, the easiest trick, continue on social media.
Yeah.
Just an Instagram live, a YouTube, whatever, making appearances, some posting, some regular posting.
Top of mind awareness.
Totally works. Oh yeah, I did forget that episode. Oh yeah, I'm going to, go back and figure it out. You missed the best part, Dave.
I'm sure I did.
Okay, we literally just finished breaking down the solo episode stuff here. And
Oh, okay.
And
Well,
Jag's got
Sure,
all the
take my
hacks.
idea and run with it.
Can I add one more note to the summer thing?
Yeah, sure.
So, Matt, you used to harp on this a lot, and I think you've pulled back on it just because it was like every episode we were bringing it up. But it's like the announcement of you're taking your summer break is super important, putting that on your feed. And then I think after that, this would take maybe an hour to do before you turn off the podcast for the summer, or your clients go on vacation. This is something you handle for them, but it's just doing reruns. It's keeping your podcast in the listener's feed every single week, or whatever your release cadence is. You're taking your popular episodes, maybe the episode that got almost no downloads for whatever reason, you're just reposting that one. And then replay right in front of it. That way the content machine is still churning things out. You as the host get to go, you're going on vacation, hang out with your kids, whatever it is. And then you're coming back at the end of the summer.
Right. So two things that I still tell everyone that's important is put in the show description that you're on a break, but you're going to be back September 7th with a brand new episode. The second thing that I think is definitely doable is go ahead and release those summer reruns. It's nice before you start. Hey, I'm on summer vacation. Going to be back in September. This is one of my favorite episodes that we recorded back in December, and then play the episode. And then when you get back, delete them all. They don't have to sit in the feed for the summer.
Interesting.
Yeah, you can go ahead and delete, and then
Very good point.
You can pick up that way. You're not having some sort of massive scroll issue.
Yeah.
You might lose some analytics though, right?
No, once the download has happened, you get credit for the download, and then you unpublish those episodes. Yeah, and then
it might also be, sorry if you guys already said this, you can cut me off, but an opportunity to use dynamic audio insertion for those that use it.
Definitely.
We did not mention that, but go ahead and share that.
Yeah, so you could go ahead and create a 30-second, 60-second message if you want to play at the beginning of all your shows and say, "Happy summer, everybody." If you've clicked on one of the more recent episodes of this podcast, you're probably going to hear a replay of an old episode that we thought was special. But if you're wondering whether new content's coming, it is September 7th or whatever. And, run that throughout the course of the summer, and then obviously take it down when you resume.
How's your summer been, David?
Terrible. Sorry. You're talking to a guy who just had his car towed today. So it's impossible to be in a good mood. Anyone who's ever had their car towed, they know.
Is it pouring rain behind you?
No, the StreamYard must be thinking that I have a, what do you call it?
Green screen?
Yeah, which I don't. It's actually just
it can feel your emotional energy, and it's projecting it by putting pouring rain in your background.
It looks like glitter.
We're at the club, Jag.
So that Family Guy clip. Why'd you stop?
That's right, Jag. Very good.
Okay, so I think I would like. By the way, Johnny, you showed up with podcastengine.ai. Is that who you are today?
That is who I am today. Thank you for calling that out.
So Johnny's been working on some AI stuff to solve some of the things that he has around the office and to make everyone's life a little bit easier. Do you want to walk us through what this is and share?
Sure.
Show and tell today.
Yeah. So basically how this idea came to be was I was using ChatGPT to build all of these little agents over the past year of, okay, this agent here gets a transcript and writes the show description for me. This agent here helps me come up with titles. This agent over here helps me get the time codes correct and get the actual time codes. This one will help me write social posts, yada, yada, yada. And then I went, what if I just combined everything together from one transcript? And I pulled up the trusty Claude code. I have never written code before, but technology is incredible. And I built this entire thing myself, and I think it would be really helpful for people. So essentially, who you are if you are using this is you have just finished your podcast. You've got a full transcript of your episode. It's got your intro, your outro. You've got timestamps on the actual transcript. Now you need to get this thing uploaded, but all of the other things have to happen in between. This is where you would come to the podcast content engine, and this is what it looks like. So if you're not watching this on YouTube or on Spotify or on Apple Video, pull that screen up and start paying attention now. You would take your transcript here. You're going to drag it into this little box. It's uploaded. You have 3 different show modes. If you want kind of viral, but think Twitter style writing. This is really punchy. This is clickbaity. We want to get people to click. Maybe you're more, I want a little bit of that, but I'm also more the professional tone. The growth mode is right in the middle, perfect for you. Or if you're just strictly, we are bound by our compliance team, we are very professional, we can have no personality at all in this, then you would click the professional. So I normally go with the growth. We talked about having a solo podcast. This will change how the outputs look. If you're a solo podcaster, if you're a co-host with no guest, or if you're a guest-driven show, you have all these different options. So for this transcript that I just uploaded, this is a guest-driven podcast. We want to type in our podcast name. This one is called Leaning In. You want to type it exactly as it appears in Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And the reason for that is it's going to go find your show on Apple and Spotify and pull those links for you. You need your host name so that it understands when it reads the transcript who is who. If you have multiple speakers, you would just separate it with a comma. But in this case, we just have one host and one guest. We've got our guests here. And then if you want, the reason I added this little custom entities here is for if you have sponsors that are hard to spell. We know all the SaaS companies are, really into the no vowels thing. And so that can get messed up in the transcript if it's a URL that you're reading. Or oftentimes what I find is most helpful for this part of it is if the host works for a company and that's where the podcast is sort of housed in, is underneath the company umbrella, and you want that company to be mentioned, but it's not explicitly mentioned because the host is not talking about themselves. That's where you would put this. And you will just click generate once all that's in. And so this is going to take around 90 seconds. So I'll just talk my way through what's happening. So right now, what the podcast engine is doing is it is going through the entire transcript and it's going to start pulling keywords. And as each one is completed, it's going to turn green. It's going to write keywords for you, which are going to be like what Jag was talking about in his blog post, where he said the blog post was about what to do when recording when your podcast is hot, but it ranked really high for overheating podcast equipment and what to do. So this will really help out with the keyword search. It's going to write title options for you. It's going to write your show notes description. The chapters and the time codes, I think, is the biggest time saver. And it's going to put those in the correct format for Apple Podcasts and Spotify, which needs the parentheticals in there, and then another one for YouTube. So you're not going in and adding all of the parentheticals or going in and removing all the parentheticals to have those apply and work on YouTube and Apple Podcasts. Chapters, timestamps, and time codes are all one thing. It has to parse through all 3 of those, smash them together, make sure they're correct. And this is why having timestamps on your transcript is really important.
Yes.
If you don't have the timestamps on your transcript, that part is not going to work. Everything else will work. It's just those chapters and time codes aren't going to give you anything meaningful, which is fine. And it knows if it doesn't find any numbers for time codes or timestamps, it's just going to return nothing. It's going to omit things if it's not confident in it. Then it's going to find your links. So it's going to find our host on social media. If our host has a website, LinkedIn, Twitter, same with the guest. It's going to find any companies, books, organizations mentioned in the episode. And then it's actually going to go search on the web for those correct links. And it gives you a valuation of, hey, we're highly confident this link is correct. We're medium confident this link is correct. Or this is a low confidence link. If it can't find anything, it's just not going to give it back. One of the things that I've run into with this is finding your YouTube channel. If your YouTube channel is titled after your name and not your podcast name, it's not going to know to search for your name. That's something I'm working on now, but that might get omitted. So that's just an example there. So we're all finished here, and this is what the output's going to look like. We've got all of our keywords here. So you've got your primary keywords. So agentic, AI, and retail. This episode is basically about where AI was going in the retail real estate industry. You have all of your primary keywords here. You would want to copy these and somehow work them into your episode description. So reworking your episode description that you get to fit these keywords in there. Same with the secondary or the long tail keywords, and then your hashtags for your YouTube tags, putting it in the YouTube description box. You can copy each one individually. You don't have to use all of them. Or if you hate all of these, you can just regenerate it, and it'll give you a whole new list of new ones. You move on to your episode titles, and it's the same thing. We've got 3 episode titles that you can use. If you hate them all, you can just regenerate them. If you like all 3 of them, but you're not sure which yet and you want to come back to it later, copy all, paste it somewhere else. Then we've got our episode description where it's mentioning the host by name, the guest by name, It's going to mention everything that they talk about in the episode, bullet pointed out for easy reading, and then sort of a more detailed explanation up here. And then my favorite part about these descriptions is who is this for? This episode offers a clear-eyed view of where consumer demand is headed and what it means for anyone investing in or leasing real retail space. It's a very niche audience, but it tells you within one sentence exactly what this episode's about. We'll move into our chapter markers. So Apple and Spotify, here's all of your time codes that you can just copy and paste right into your show description. And then you can tab over to YouTube. As you can see, the way that it's written is different. All the time codes are exactly the same. It's just formatted a bit differently. And then here we've got all of our links. Here's our show on YouTube. Here's our show on Apple Podcasts. That's the show. Here's our show on Spotify. We've got Terry, our host, is on LinkedIn, but we didn't find a Twitter profile for him, so maybe he's not on Twitter, or the content engine was not confident in that Twitter profile that was pulled up, so just decided to omit it. Then we've got our guest, Dana, LinkedIn, Twitter, her website, all of the companies mentioned in this. So it's going to be a lot of retail companies. Some of this stuff you may not want to use, but that's where you just copy all, paste it, and then delete the ones you're not going to use. The one that is the most robust is going to be your social posts. So you've got your email blast here. This is just a simple copy and paste that you would send out, either attached to your newsletter, or this is your newsletter, or you're just sending it out to your email list. A brand new episode of Leaning In has just gone live. We've repurposed our show description in here, and then we've also added in all of our links for easy clicking. So I can find you on YouTube, I can find it on Apple Podcasts, I can find it on Spotify. Then you're going to get 10 social posts that you can use, and they're all very different. You've got your promotional posts that you can copy and paste. And where it says LinkedIn here means the style of writing. LinkedIn writing, the social posts written for LinkedIn are going to be much more professional tone. And then there's also an option for Twitter or X, which is going to be more casual tone, written for a more Twitter style audience. And then another little thing that people miss here is our clip suggestion below. Below that is going to give you a clip from the episode that goes best with this post. And the post was written based on this clip that it found. And what I was really adamant about is making this as easy as possible for the user. You will never find a clip that needs to be stitched together. It's always going to be one continuous sentence, one continuous story. It's not going to be like, hey, by the way, pull the 90 seconds from the beginning, pull 45 seconds from over here and stitch those together. No, everything that goes along with this post is going to be all in one thing that you can easily clip out from your episode. You've got your promo post, a takeaways post, 3 insights from my conversation with Dana Telzy on where retail is heading. You've got a quote post, so it pulls an actual quote from the transcript. It credits her with the quote and then gives a little call to action below that. Your thought leadership post, and then a question post to help drive engagement. And then it's going to be the same style post, but written in a much more casual tone for X. And then let's just say, oh my gosh, this is all so much. I just need to save this and get back to it later. You can just download everything right to your computer, save it for later, open it up, and here it is all for you.
Wow.
Save that to your computer, all your links, all your social posts, and everything you need.
Incredible time saver.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really
So
like this product.
Hopefully this is something that someone can find useful. I use it every day. And if no one ever uses it, that's totally fine with me. I made it for myself. I use it on almost every episode that I work on, and the hosts that I've used it with have found it extremely valuable. So if you do care about something like this, it's just podcastengine.ai.
That's incredible. One thing you did mention about, trying to, that solution for YouTube and where we're going to, how did we make it connect to the YouTube channel? So a good example is the podcast Super Friends appears in 2 YouTube channels, including your page, which is called what, Johnny?
Johnny Podcasts.
And mine's called the Sound Off Media Company. It's one of 3 podcasts up there. And I spoke to somebody from YouTube a few weeks ago, and they've said repeatedly, if you have a podcast, just name the channel after the podcast, and it's going to be best served in that particular way. So don't do like we do, friends.
Do as we say, not as we do.
Exactly.
Has anybody used it aside from me and Johnny? Have you guys used it?
I've
used
used it. I really like it.
Jack has used it, yes. I don't know if David's used it. Catherine uses it as well.
I haven't, but I promise I will.
Okay. I just love the fact that, it just finds the LinkedIn of the guests and puts it right into the show notes. And I didn't think about that thing where you copy and paste it and put it all in a text so that you have access to break it out into different parts of the social world. But I think that's really, really cool.
It's just one of those things that, like, the social media handles of the guests is something that us as producers, I don't know about you guys, you typically remember at the last minute, like, oh, I still got to do that. I forgot. Well, this promises that you won't.
What's the worst job?
Yeah, and I have my LinkedIn set up to where a lot of people they turn the privacy thing on where it won't tell you that Johnny has viewed your page on LinkedIn or viewed your profile. I purposely leave that off because I think it's funny that people will go like, who's Johnny Peterson? Why is he looking at my LinkedIn page? And every single episode before I made this was you're clicking on it, you're finding the person, and I'm like, well, this person's going to know that I was stalking them on LinkedIn just to find their profile so that I can copy and put it in the show notes.
All right. I'm wondering if there's anything left to yik yak about. I'll just ask David, did you say that you went to the Riverside thing today?
No, not me.
Okay, that was Jag. Sorry about that.
Yes, that was me. Yep.
All right. What, David, do you have anything you want to ask now? We did, just to let you know, we did talk about, being a solo guest just like the minute just before you got on.
Yeah. So obviously I don't know what you talked about, and I was vying for a least valuable player on the Super Friends today, and I think I've achieved that. So apologies.
Oh, you're here. That award goes to Catherine.
Let's do the second round. Let's do the second round of Fast Money with David, since he was in the vocal isolation booth, and see if he says the same things we said about being a solo podcaster.
I'll sum it up real quick since we're up against the clock. But just if you're hell bent on doing a solo pod, I'd say at least try having a guest, just seeing what the dynamic is, because I think the interplay between two people is what you get on a podcast that you probably don't get in other media. So
show me have guests. Ding.
Unless it's the Jag Show.
Also, by the way, Johnny, you did a cue earlier. Say, okay, for those of you who are listening to the show, you're gonna need to refer to the video. And with the 3 apps that I mentioned, including the iHeart app, Amazon Music app, and Apple Podcast app, you can just pick up the phone and toggle right over at the punch of a button. So that's some of the technology that's in advancements. I'm going to ask one more question. That's like, is there something you're experimenting with or working with right now that it's going to be that you're thinking about for, let's say in September? I'm going to say that what Johnny has done with podcastengine.ai has led me to, I think I can create something like that. And it turns out I can't. However, I have been working with ChatGPT to come up with an all-purpose, all-in-one sales sheet for podcasters that I work with to go and sell to advertisers. And the Sound Off podcast was the first one. I made a sale off it very quickly. So that's one. And so it's something I might do for the podcast Super Friends, and then eventually start to roll this out to clients. Can we take from the description? Can we take from past episodes? Can we take from the reviews? Can we take parts of I'll feed it the downloads and what's important or whatever metric we're going to be using that week. I'll feed you some of the consumption data. And so that's my starting point. It will be tough to get sort of, API data to get in the back, but it's something that we could look at in the future. But, it's something that I'm going to be working on for the next few months just to make, I think, life for clients better when it comes to finding an advertiser or partners for their shows.
Nice.
Anyone else working on anything? Thinking about stuff?
Working on letting my dog out of this room, who is getting very antsy behind me. You can just see her nose.
I see the little
frame.
nose popping in the frame. Matt, I think it's really cool. I would love to see that at least privately before you're ready to share it publicly. I think that's a great idea.
Oh, I was just going to share the sales sheet and the end result. I'm not quite at the coding part yet.
Oh no, I mean that's what I mean.
Yeah,
I don't think this is something you need to code. Like this is just something that you create a survey for people to provide to you. It's like I need X, Y, and Z, and I can get you your sales sheet.
I'll add one thing, Matt. We talk about the app Descript a lot, and in some ways, I think it improves by the day, and then it always seems to regress in certain areas as well. But that's for me to complain to the Descript people. But one way I've been using it lately is the create clips function, the AI function that has become really robust, and it really makes spiffy looking reels. You can set how long you want, 30 seconds, 60 seconds or whatever, and it'll pick out as many as you want. It'll pick out 5, it'll pick out 10. They're not all going to be home runs, but it lets me create like 3 quick clips from an episode. Would have taken me 1 to 2 hours in the past. Now it takes about 15 minutes.
Could we bookmark a demo for that, David, next time we do this, where you just show us how you do that? Because you tell me that and it sounds super easy, but I've tried to do it in Descript and I'm like, am I a moron? Like, I can't figure this out.
It does take a little getting used to, but it might have improved even since you last tried it.
Okay.
I've been impressed.
I'm not going to be able to end this podcast unless David gives us a podcast recommendation.
Oh.
Well, I do have a podcast if you're into music nostalgia and the music of the 70s and the 80s, and it's called
Past Tens, a top 10 time machine.
Go to timemachinepod.com. Find us on the socials at Time Machine Pod.
You want to talk about someone that has passion for their podcast? It's David. All of us have started podcast. Well, Jag and I have done podcasts that we've dropped off at one point or another. David is the only one who's done it forever.
Dave, I want to do an episode with you from the mid to late 2000s at some point.
That's good. We need someone to translate that era of music. We don't. We're not good at it.
Early 90s rock for me, please. Or
Okay.
any 90s rock.
We can do that.
If you want to deep dive into the deep cuts of a rapper called Future, I'd be happy to jump on and help you with that one.
But not Future from 8 Mile.
Future or Jimmy Buffett. I've been really into him lately.
Wow.
Really?
The yin and the yang of Johnny
music.
Podcast. Wow.
We'll
Nice.
go counterclockwise and say goodbye, and we'll start in Boston.
Pod617.com. Again, apologies for being super late to this pod, but it's David Yes, the Boston Podcast Network. Thank you.
John Gay, Jag Podcast Productions, just outside Detroit, Michigan, jagpodcastproductions.com.
I finally have something to promote, podcastengine.ai. Please check it out. If you hate it, fine. Tell me. If you love it, please try it. Would love your feedback.
I'm Matt Kundle from the Sound Off Media Company, and I'm the guy with I got a weekly newsletter that comes out every month. It is called soundingoff.news, is where you can go and sign up for it, and I'd love for you to do that. Goodbye from the great.
Thanks for watching the podcast Super Friends. For more Super Friend wisdom, check out the show at soundoff.network. Produced and distributed by the Sound Off Media Company.